What's up, friends and family? Or should I say, que lo que? Amigos y familia, aquí estamos. Here we are with Luz Colón, current candidate for City Council at Large in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We are so excited to have you here today, Luz, especially que yo soy parte puertorriqueña and part Boricua, Puerto Rican. So wonderful to have a candidate in this election to be representing the Latinos and honestly, not even the Latino community. Through research, through you and meeting you, you are the type of person who advocates for the community one-on-one. And as somebody from a younger generation, we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, this is great. Thank you for doing this this interview. Me as a candidate and having to step into this new journey that I have embarked. I gotta say, it's been a learning experience, and although that it has been literally 25 years of advocacy in my community, both in city and state government, having to jump on the other side of the realm, I call it, right, in my words, it's a whole different thing. It is a whole different ball game. And sometimes, you know, I think back to myself and I'm like, okay, like, you know, did I make the right decision? Yeah. You know, like what really, you know, have I really gotten myself into? But at the same time, when I reflect on that, and listen, at the end of the day, I think that it's really important for people to see my true authentic self and how I've been feeling. But honestly, what I feel is that a sense of responsibility with all of my longevity in this community, in a place I was born and raised in, a sense of responsibility to do more. Right, and to be able to advocate in a way that you're able to have the foundation to make changes in the city. And we need to feel safe. We need to feel secure. We need to feel that we're heard. And I think those things are really, really important as I'm continuing this walk.
Absolutely. With the election nearing on Tuesday, what are some of the most important topics that you are gunning for your campaign, that you're rooting for?
So there are three topics, and one of the three is much more of a overarching priority that does fall in the line of workforce development, infrastructure, building capital, and filtering funding to the city, in which I know that we need in all different capacities and programs and such. But I'll name them all three, and not to kind of get into each of them, but the very first priority for me is public safety.
Absolutely.
Public safety, we have education.
I think that's the most important for everybody right now is public safety.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's almost an epidemic in Philly right now.
Yeah. I even want to call it a crisis. I think because public safety for me means so much, right? And then if you kind of start to peel off the layers, you know, you think about the youth, and you think about the gun violence, and you think about mental health, right? Those things are somewhat of a coalition of all of these things that we're seeing in the city and things that we really need to address. Yeah. And in order to do that, you have to be able to work with all levels of government. And I think that it does start from the city of Philadelphia. Yeah. It starts with leadership here, and it starts with folks that really want to roll up their sleeves and dig into the core issues. But we can't do that alone. And I think that if there's any message that I have been carrying with myself each and every time that I've gone on this campaign trail, is the fact that, you know, with the community's help and their voices and their day of election going out to vote, that's how we're going to build a stronger Philadelphia to be able to move that agenda forward. Yes. You know what I mean? And again, it's sort of overarching, but it's so many things that we can compartmentalize to be able to work with different stakeholders groups and governmental entities to be able to filtrate what's really needed in this city. So.
Because the underlying layers is very important. Yeah. It's it grows into the aggression
Oh, yeah.
of safety.
Right.
Safety concern doesn't just happen.
Right.
And
Think about it this way, and I think that because of some of the influx of a lot of our the population that's growing, especially if you want to talk about the Latino population. For me, I'm born and raised in North Philadelphia. My mom, raised me in this city. And from the time that I've grown up till now, you see a large population in the city that definitely needs to be represented. I feel that the more that our growth and the population in the city continues to, expand, we really need to filter more resources in this city. So I think that those things are just so many, I would say, areas that we need to work on. And it has a lot to do with the poverty and, how do we connect and build a bridge from our folks that are really needing the assistance and give them the resources so that they can have a better job, or that they can be able to go home and not have food insecurities. That's an issue.
Yeah.
And folks may not realize it, but even folks that are working on a day-to-day basis, perhaps
You don't
2
know
and 3
what's
jobs.
behind closed doors.
Exactly.
And the struggle with what may have with their families or their commuter or whatever is making it that much more complicated.
Exactly. Yeah. So, those are things that I'm very passionate about. I think that in my experience, having to deal with constituency, and I don't take that very lightly, because when you're working with the general public, you tend to sort of kind of put yourself in their shoes, and you're like, wow, what can we do to help this situation? How can we help that person?
If I were that person, what would I want from?
Exactly. And and I think part of it, I think that for me, I definitely can relate. I mean, I am a single mom of 2 boys. I raised them on my own. Even going back further in my life, I grew up in a PHA home. And all my life, I have grown in a single parent home. Just my mom, she raised me by herself, although I love my dad very much, but he wasn't here. He was living in Puerto Rico, because that's where my family's from. It was hard. It was hard for her to raise 4 kids on her own. And but nonetheless, I'm just really, really happy I've been able to sort of just gather everything that I can gather and learn from my mother and leaders in the community. And I think that has definitely formed me to the person that I am today.
Wonderful.
It's so much, obviously, but it's very I would say very bittersweet for me, if that's a good word, right?
That is a
or
good
very
word.
Emotional. I'm very tied into my community.
I feel like bittersweet sometimes has a negative connotation because it comes from the goodness from the bad. But
Right.
I feel like there's always good in change.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. And, I mean, as bare of
Yeah.
explanation as that may be, all across the board, change is good if it's good.
Yeah.
It's bittersweet, but wonderful.
Right.
But moving forward, public safety, of course, and education.
Education. Yes, for education, I have the privilege of working with several department heads, which we call them basically the secretaries of Department of Education in the state. And so what I have learned is the fact that some of our schools perhaps may not have diversity resources for our kids. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking kids that are coming into the state of Pennsylvania and that are not receiving the appropriate resources. Therefore, that, some of their grades are kind of low and they're not passing, and
But
those things are an issue.
It doesn't reflect the determination of the students. It just reflects the lack of
the resources. And although that we, and focusing on Philadelphia School District, I think for me, I had the privilege of working on a state level, but kind of bringing it back home, right? Because I'm thinking to myself, what are the resources that are filtering from Department of State? All of the grants and opportunity that is available through the federal level, obviously it filters down to the state level. therefore the sole responsibility of the school district is to make sure that they're getting all of the resources that they need through the state level. And I believe that is happening. What I believe other sort of gaps in between is perhaps some of just smaller opportunities that are available that we're missing. And that there I feel that we really need to work on and to create a better collaboration with the school district here, with the Department of State, to make sure that we are garnishing all the opportunities, not just one area or that area. And again, listen, this is not taking away of, I feel like we have some great educators. We have some awesome people here in the city of Philadelphia.
We have some of the best schools in the country. Here in Philadelphia.
And I just feel we just, for whatever it's worth, my goal is to make sure that we are getting all those opportunities, because I see other schools in the other areas thrive, and we want to see that. I know that in the campaign trail, there has been some conversations on some of the asbestos, I guess, schools that are perhaps that are not structurally
up to date.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to focus on the local level on what the needs are, and outsource what we can filter in. And I think that's part of one of my main objectives, and making sure that we have students going into a brand new school, that it's not hot, that they're able to kind of, study in comfort, and you know what I mean? So those things are important for education. But I definitely could go on and on. But
So what are your main issues of working with something on a state level where you have all these resources versus working with a city with probably less resources, Pennsylvania State with under Tom Wolf?
Here's what I would say. It's known that I have worked with three different council members in my career. I've worked with those 3 different council members in moving a Philadelphia agenda, right? They're all at large. A lot of people were asking me that question. They were like, why not at large? I said, well, I think that people need to understand that every office I've ever worked in, I was able to work in sort of a larger capacity when it relates to the issues of the whole city of Philadelphia, and bringing it back into our office to create policies that's affecting the city of Philadelphia as a whole. So with that said, having to then been tapped on the shoulder by Governor Wolf back in 2016, and then being appointed to run his Latino Affairs Commission for the state,
That was a position that he reinstated for you, correct?
Yes, through an executive order.
That's
Through an executive order. So, I mean,
incredible.
the goal is to make sure that there is those
Somebody's doing
commissions
the
to
job.
stay alive.
to be necessary.
Right, to be necessary. I mean, think about the numbers. 1.5 million Latinos in the state of Pennsylvania. That's very high. So I wanted to give you somewhat of that background, because having to work alongside the governor as his senior advisor, pushing a statewide agenda is wonderful, is great, because then you are working directly with all of the state agencies to ensure the equal access to the opportunities in which they offer, down to DHS, DOS, and that's Department of State, Department of Health, Department of Human Services. So all of these state departments that are very, very important to our communities. But one conversation that sort of brought me back, me and the governor had a conversation. It was literally one of the last lunches that he hosted for all of his staff, just before, I think after 2 weeks after that, kind of ending the whole administration. And it was literally my last day. And then he says, Luz, you're okay to stay in state government. Because he knew I was running, and we had that conversation prior to. And I looked at him and I said, Governor, I need to be home. I need to be home with my people.
And support my people.
Yeah, to support my people. And it's really important to me that I am moving an agenda that is going to benefit those folks that are just like me, that look like me, and that have those issues that I know I could relate to. But nonetheless, I think that's what brought me back, here to make sure that I'm, home and now running for office, and embarking this journey. But nonetheless, if there has any been like some of what of the challenges were, let's not forget in city government for me and all of the offices and even community, I felt that I was raised with like a group of leaders that gave me all of the tools that I needed, or if I needed to know something, it was such easy access for me as a leader, really to move, to do things and to be able to help my community or to be a part of an organization, whatever it was. And what I found very difficult and challenging for me is having to learn how to balance a single mother, travel, and work. And that was very difficult for me. And I want to take it back on a personal level where it was very mentally draining, where I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally responsible, right? Not for myself and for my kids. Like, I'm literally responsible for a whole entire, Latino state agency. What we do here matters because then it's going to reflect out to the general public, because that what we say and do and what we fight for is really for more equity and more inclusion and more resourcing as it relates to our community. So that was a big undertaking. And I learned very, very quickly that, nothing is ever easy. And although that I had my leaders that I can kind of just pick up the phone or reach out to, I didn't have that over there. I didn't have that, and sometimes I almost felt that I had my back against the wall. But what drove me to continue the work was like, okay, let's back up here. I've learned from greatness. I have. And I could say that very proudly because I feel that I have. And I learned from leaders that knew never to give up. And if you felt that you fell, to dust yourself off and get up and keep on moving. So since I felt that I grew that tough skin here and knew how to persevere in very difficult situations, I was like, wait a minute, okay, if I know I did that here, I can do it over there. I know it. And as I was working through the state government and fighting my way through some of these agencies, took a lot of work. And had it not been for the 30 commissioners that was appointed, I mean, literally, I don't think I would have done it alone. But it really took a lot of perseverance through the commission, even if we had to write a memo or write a note or call a meeting, because one of our responsibilities is to meet on a one-on-one basis with all of the secretaries that from each of these departments. And when we saw that there was some inequities, it was in our duty to be able to address those and sort of just lay it out and say, hey, how can we be able to connect our communities with your resources, whether it's through language access, translating services, whatever it was. At times, it was very difficult. It was very difficult because you are working with folks, and sometimes you're like, okay, is this really falling on deaf ears? But you're the one that's responsible to make sure that things are followed through, that it's done to its completion. And that's one of the things that throughout the 8 years that, although a lot of people don't realize that we were able to make changes when, and here's the thing, we never wanted to, everybody's like, well, your commission did all these things. Well, how come nobody knows? I said, because sometimes we just, made sure we completed one agenda and we were on to the next. So it was very fast paced, right, but it was very rewarding, very rewarding to say the least. I hope that's not too much. No,
honestly, just like my question just straight up is like, how do you handle all this? What do you do to kind of relax from all?
Here's the thing. This has been all my life. I have been a public service for my whole life. I gotta admit, and anybody can tell you that is in public service, it is a 24-hour job. Whether people may not know it, it is. It is.
You're a parent
your phone,
to the city. You were our mom.
Yeah. It's like somebody's in need of something.
Who needs me?
Yeah. And here's the thing. The one thing look, technology is my best friend because had it not been the multitasking and say, hey, this person needs this, we need to make sure to get that. And, but I think for me, family is always important. My kids are very important to me, and I needed to make sure that I did carve that time for them, that quality time. Yeah. So the work-life, the work-life balance is so important to master, because then your kids are going to worry, okay, mom's busy all the time, but guess what? That Saturday was just dedicated to us, right? And it was important for me to just make sure that I kept a very strong agenda, that all of that I did was, I would say, completed in a timely fashion, so I'm not breaking my mind and saying, oh my God, I got to meet a deadline, I got to do this, and my kids are not really having the benefit of spending time with me. So in order for me to have a very strict schedule from a 9 to 5 was very critical for me. Mm-hmm. Because even if I have to work afterwards, I would do it, but then make sure that I'm checking in with my son, make sure that he's done homework. So it is a balance, right? Yes. It's a balance, but one thing that I have to say is the fact that if we don't create some kind of balance, then next thing you know, your kids are going to grow up, and then you're like, oh my God, whatever happened here? Oh my goodness, I kind of missed out on their lives. What happened? My son's like, Mom, I'm off to college. And I'm like, wait a minute, did you have a graduation? Did you have a graduation that I should know about? No, kidding. No. But nonetheless, no. And listen, so I got to share this story. Yes. It's so funny because just recently I had a fundraiser. Mm-hmm. And turns out that it was the same day as my son's prom. And I was like, okay, so how am I going to do this? I said, it's going to work out, and I know it is. So we did a send-off. Luckily for me that...
It's going to get done.
It's going to get done. I promise you that. And he was so happy. He didn't even know that I was literally dressed up for a fundraiser, because I don't even think I told him. So I'm like, Mom's really dressed for all pictures.
She loves you
so much. I dressed this all just for you, son. All for you.
And all reality is that I had to jump in the car and zoom to that fundraiser. What I'm saying to say is the fact that when there's a will, there's a way. There's a way
to make it happen.
Right, to make it happen.
Yes.
And those things are for me monumental in my child's lives, that I don't want to have to miss any of those things. And so I'm really happy. I was excited, and we had a really good time. For me, I have to make sure that you are taking at least some time to yourselves to have self-care, to make sure, because if I'm not good for anybody.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And if I'm restless, I'm not having a productive day. So I think that having that self-care and that moment to yourselves, at least if it's 2 hours, even if it's going to church on Sunday, whatever it is, I think that it's really important to kind of take a step back and be like, I haven't really, I had some one-on-one with my youngest, which is Sebastian, which is, I'm telling you, he does acting. He's an actor, so he is.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, are you okay? Are you fine? How's your day? He's like, Mom, so I'm all right? And I'm like, how old are you? You're like 13. He's like 30. It's like, oh my God. I'm like,
it's 13 going on 30, huh?
13 going on 30, really. But very mature. And I'll share this. I remember when I wanted to make the decision, the very difficult decision and very important decision in my life to run for office. I had a conversation with both of them. And I sat them down. I said, listen, this is going to require a lot of time for me.
And Joseph.
Yes. Which is, he's 19. So them together, I think that it was really important for me to have that conversation, because I felt to myself, they're the ones that I have to kind of take a little bit of more responsibility in the house and just making sure things are in order. My oldest said to me, he says, Mom, I will support you in any way. So he's very like an introvert, so he's very short on words. The youngest says, Mom, if that's your dream, I will support you in any way. And I'm like, he said a little bit more than that, but I looked at him and I was like, these children, I'm so blessed.
Yeah, that's the sweetest thing I've ever heard.
Yes.
That is very
I'm like, they do it, and then sometimes like, but why is that dish in the sink there? I'm like, what happened there? You said you would help, but But I'm saying that jokingly, but nonetheless, They really, really
The soul
understand.
comes from. I mean, like it comes from you. You're their mother. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Moms are very important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mother's Day is coming up. My
Oh,
mom's
yeah.
birthday was Friday.
Oh, okay.
Like you
Very
said,
nice, very
there's
nice.
always time for everything.
There is.
For me, never in a billion years would I take off on a Friday, but I had to.
Yeah, yeah.
I hadn't seen my mother in 3 months.
Oh.
I missed Easter. Y ya tú sabes que,
Yes, yes.
like with all the important holidays,
Yeah.
you know. But sometimes you get sucked up into work.
Yes.
And that goes along with what we were talking earlier with mental health.
Yeah.
Gotta see mom, though.
That's right.
So it made, you know.
Good time.
What's it called? When there's a will, there's a way.
That's right.
What we said.
Is she one of those moms where she hasn't seen you in a while? She's picking up the phone and be like, hey, where are you?
Oh.
Haven't seen you in a while.
No. I'm
what's
always
going on?
calling her. We're calling each other.
Oh, that's
we
great.
talk like
That's
every
great.
day.
That's great. That's great.
She's like, stop calling me. And then when I was living with her, she's like, get out.
My mom's like that though. She always
Yes.
calls me all
Yeah.
the time. Like she knows like I get off work at like 4:30, so she always calls me and
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm catching you like coming home from work, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, what's up? She's just like nothing. I'm like, oh, okay. Like what's
That's
going
great.
on?
Listen, you gotta love them. I mean, my mom, she's been, for me, my rock, really. I mean, she's been just literally my backbone in everything that I've learned because, I mean, her migrating from Puerto Rico here at the age of 15. And, you know, our cultures have a lot to do, you know, with some of the, you know, some parents are a little bit different, but for my mom, you know, she was very poor in Puerto Rico. And she was brought here actually to babysit, not necessarily for just anything else. And so she definitely lived a very, very life. I always say that you really need to write a book, like, you know, but, you know, those things that you've gone through
I
and
feel
everything
like-
you persevered over, you know.
I feel like the immigrant like story
Yeah.
and struggle
Yes.
is always like
Yeah.
so chaotically beautiful. And like one day there will be a book for hopefully
Yeah.
so many,
Yes.
and I would read yours
Oh,
in a heartbeat.
No, yeah.
But one thing that has been on my mind that I wanted to ask you is how do you figure that you will, I know that the audience will appreciate this, how do you figure that you will bridge the gap between Latino affairs and everybody else? Because of course you were familiar with that being Latino, but council at large, different, every council, city council member in the city, which means that you would be in charge of everyone else,
Right,
correct?
right.
How do you figure that you would be able to advocate for everybody altogether?
Everybody or just the Latino community?
Everybody and bridging the gap between Latinos and everybody.
I think that one of the things that, and this is something that I definitely thought a lot about, and it's only because I've worked with an amazing group of people here in the city of Philadelphia that definitely had a conversation of where, as I was sharing with you, that the population is here and they're contributing here. They're living here. They decided to, when they migrated, to make Philadelphia their home. So when you think about all of those things, you're thinking about a whole community that is also bringing revenue, that is also paying taxes, that's also doing all these things. So how do we really shine a light on those contributions, right? And I think that as for me, as you know, if I do have the privilege of being a city council person, I think that one of the things that I would like to do is share a light on some of the demographics and some of what we have contributed over centuries. You know what I mean? And I think that those things are really, really important, where people can also see that all of our cultures, because I'm a firm believer of, you know, some of the issues that impact our communities the most is our Black and brown communities. But particularly when you're talking about the Latino community, there's also a language barrier and a lack of education when it comes down to certain things. Not all,
Absolutely.
not
No,
all,
that is
not all.
valid.
And I also want to be very careful when it comes down to, are you saying the Latino community is not educated? It is not that. It is not that. I am talking about the type of education that voter registration and education is important, right? And some people realize that, you know, because of what their surroundings are and some of the disparities in which
It's
they're
a blockage.
exactly
It's an
exactly.
indifference, and
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
privilege
Yeah.
for those who are born here. It's easier for them.
Right.
And I was born here, but
Right.
my parents are immigrants, so it's a lot that I had to learn firsthand on my own and teach my parents at the same time.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of first generation children out there or even parents that are learning themselves, and they're as young as me, but they're getting to grips, and they have children, and those resources are very important. There is that bridge to that blockage to gap,
Right.
that to get to the next level,
Right.
that privilege is not already
Right.
handed,
Right.
with just a language barrier.
Right. And I think, again, it's not of what they're, what they can't do. I think that folks, because of, again, as I was sharing with you, that the challenges that perhaps our communities are having, perhaps choose not to seek out resources because they lost faith in the system.
Yeah.
So because of that, I think that part of an education component on why it's so important to vote, or
Is building the
why-
trust.
Right.
Yeah.
Is building the trust, and also educating on what those resources are available to them, whether they know it or not. That's what I mean in terms of that educational component. So,
Wonderful.
And that's one of my goals, and
Yeah.
that's my agenda.
We've got public safety, we've got education. I think there was a third one.
So I definitely wanted to put as one of my priority is, as I was sharing earlier, and I hope I didn't
You're good.
long
Lost in the
with it.
sauce.
They were like,
No, you're fine.
No, we love that.
No,
the
seriously.
juice. Give me the juguito, please.
so you're talking about economical opportunity, and I
Yes.
was as I was sharing with you, that is the overarching branch of when you think about the workforce development, when you're thinking about the minority business sector in the city of Philadelphia. And now I'm talking as a whole, as the city of Philadelphia. When you're thinking about businesses and when you're thinking about public safety, there is a correlation, there is a connection there. And what I mean by that is because since the business community is not feeling as safe as they want to be, these businesses are closing a little bit earlier than what they should. So this means loss of revenue, loss of, some of what they're building in terms of their businesses. So, it's somewhat of like an ecosystem that is happening. And when you're looking about public safety, you're looking about the lack of resources of our businesses. So it's kind of like dwindling down.
Yeah.
So how do we build the capital?
Yeah.
How do we give more opportunities when some of these businesses are suffering in a sense of, well, in order for me to, sustain my business, I'm actually digging into my own pocket so I can be able to pay my employees. Like just things like that you hear.
Especially how we're moving forward
Right.
economically
Right.
and logistically
Right.
past COVID.
Right.
We were talking about that
Exactly.
the other day and how we were going to approach you with that one, especially with the hours of business closing early and just the generalized antic and behavior of the city.
Right, and I think that part of the economical opportunity does fall in the line of making sure that we are benefiting from every resource possible. Oftentimes you hear on the campaign trail or just folks that are in general conversations about, oh, well, in order for us to sustain certain programs and businesses, perhaps we can kind of just take from these agencies. Like, I don't think that is the answer. I really don't. I think that we can definitely look at other sources in our federal and state government to be able to make sure that there is the appropriate revenues that are coming into the city of Philadelphia and where they're needed most. I don't believe in taking away from any programs or any departments for that fact.
Yeah.
And I think we can do this. I mean, let's not forget that after the
To keep the integrity of one thing,
Right.
you shouldn't source
Right.
to fuel
Right.
another
Right.
thing.
The
Yeah.
governor left the rainy day fund just before he stepped down, so, you have administration that is not in the negative.
Right.
You have administration that definitely can look at their economical, what I call is the Department of Economical Opportunities, to see what other grants and opportunities that we have for our nonprofit organizations, for our businesses and what have you, so we can benefit from that too. Again, it's about knowing where to find the money. Where to find the money, and you have to be very open and think outside the box and not having us to kind of just look into insourcing, which I know that it obviously is important because the city has a budget, right? And that's something that we have also to look at, because we can definitely have someone to whomever that person is that would be the city controller, to be able to think of ways and work with the city council and think of ways that we can be able to build more revenue on whatever that is, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, having the overarching economical opportunity does fall in under resourcing the city of Philadelphia as a whole and looking at our economical infrastructure, if you may, right? And to make sure that we are resourcing our streets and bridges and making sure that things are getting appropriately done so that we're living in a better and prettier Philadelphia.
Overall,
and you know, a lot of people complain about the trash. Those are things that we need to address. So that there falls under all of those things.
I would love to.
And it's a lot to unpack. It is.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I would love to plug a friend of mine with keeping the cleanliness of Philadelphia. It's so important to work hard and play hard. I have friends from somewhere in Philadelphia as a DJ collective. As much as it is fun for them to get together and gather friends and they throw wonderful little parties, they just did a wonderful day rave where they cleaned up Graffiti Pier to its entirety.
Really?
On the last Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what a fun way to do it.
I mean, like, there was music playing. People brought their own cleaning tools. I feel like I am so about thinking outside of the box because there are always people available who are, everybody who lives here has a passion for the city, and people want to get out there. They just don't know how.
They don't know how, right? And I think that I remember, you know, there was a time where you had block captains that would win awards for the cleanest blocks. And there's a lot of things that the city used to do in order to encourage our neighbors to be able to come outside, take out their hoses, come with a broom, clean, you know, and do all those things. Even me, I was a committee person for the 24th and 10th Division. I worked the polling place and, you know, the day of election there for every day for almost 17 years, believe it or not. And I would even go a little bit over and beyond because even that one of my jobs was to connect to some of those communities. I would actually partner with some of the city services to be able to pick up bags, trash bags, and gloves, and literally drive in my car, pack the whole car, drive in my car, and like deliver. Like, who's coming out? I would even do flyers, even if it's like written. Like, I mean, when you're talking about low budget, sort of grassroots level stuff, like that was it.
Here for
I mean, we're all about that.
You care.
And then they're like, oh, watch that bottle. It's like, don't worry, we got gloves. Like, don't worry. Like, we're totally safe. Like, you know, it didn't matter to us because this was our community. And then, you know, and then my kids, oh my goodness, I would get them all involved. I think at the time, Sebastian was 5 at one of the times that we did this. He says, Mom, what are we doing this? You know, like, this is other people's trash. I said, son, do you like your do you like where you live? Do you love where you live? He says, yeah. I said, do you want to see it pretty? He says, yes. I said, well, there you go. That is part of our community. If you want to see somewhere you live and you love pretty, it's up to us to also help. This is a collective effort. So I try to instill that in him and stuff like that, you know. So, you know, hopefully the next cleanup that he's he's in his adolescence. So, it's, you know, Mom, you know.
He's like, Mom, I got a date at the mall. I can't do it now.
But, you know, nonetheless, you know, this is a place I love so much. And this is part of the reasons why, you know, hey, you know, let's be very clear. Could I have been state government? Yes, but that's not my. Although having to be and working with the governor and moving a statewide agenda, it was wonderful. It was awesome, great experience. But having to be a part of my community and embrace that is much more.
I feel like it's almost better to have that layout of. You've been up there with state government and then come back to your community because you have the professionality and you've worked with people one-on-one and you know exactly where to go and how to move.
Yes.
And what works for the state, why can't it work for the city, especially?
Even going off that is just like, I feel like our generation just feels like you only have to vote for president. That's it. You only have
That
to
too.
vote
Right.
for federal stuff, for
Right,
state stuff.
right.
But like people always forget, like, oh,
Right.
like what about my local community? Like, what can I do to get involved? Like,
Right.
who's actually running?
Right.
Like, do they agree with what I agree? And
Right.
like, so could you maybe tell us, like,
Yes.
at least our audience, the importance of like paying attention to local politics,
Exactly.
local events,
Yes.
local just community in general.
I think the one misperception is that, okay, that's the one time that they go out when it has to like come voting for president. And what I feel like our generation needs to understand is the fact that the local government is what it makes a major impact in this city. So the voting block, and I would say in the whole city of Philadelphia, is quite low. And that there needs to change. You know, I'm not trying to, say, hey, oh my God, why didn't we do this? And I don't think it's really that. I think that we just need to do a better job. And this is part of my educational piece and trying to connect with our communities in the importance of voting, because technically it's the local government that makes much of an impact. And I think that we definitely have to really see to that, because if there is an elected official, and whomever that might be, it's not doing that job that, that's servicing, and they were elected there. And it is our duty to recognize those that are doing the work and those that are not.
Yeah.
And that is our power, and that is our voice. So we're not actively going to the voting places and sort of just like think that it's not as important. It is. This is just as important as the presidential race, and I would say even more important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're home.
It is your home.
It's the building
Right,
blocks that are right
right,
surrounding
right,
you.
Right.
To casually move to a segment that we usually have. Happy early Mother's Day.
Oh, thank
and
you.
here's a
Oh.
gift. Here's a gift and a guest. A gift and a guest.
Gift and a guest.
A gift and a guest.
Oh, that's so sweet.
The guest is
Thank
Luz,
you.
and the gift is, a gift. That's so awkward.
So am I able to
You
open
may,
this?
if you
Okay.
like.
All right, let's just see. Let's just see.
Got you a little
Okay.
something to say. Thank you for being on our show.
No, thank you. Thank you. This is great.
Thank
This
you
is
for
great. Oh.
doing what you've been doing. Happy Mother's Day. You
Thank
can
you
open
so
it now.
much.
You can open it later. Whatever you like. Whatever.
Well, let's see here. Let's see.
Got you some cafe.
You know what?
You know.
You know what?
Robust
you know me
for,
very well.
a strong
You know
woman,
me-
strong
look at
coffee.
here,
Yep.
Okay. This is the
Robert
early
Rose.
rise. The early rise. Okay. This is great.
Rise and grind, rise and
Yes,
grind.
yes, thank you so much.
And just, a little bit
It
of
smells
smells
so
to
good.
just
Oh, smells
relajar, a little relaxation
claro que sí.
station.
Y
We all
déjame
need
lo que
it.
hay aquí. Is this a candle?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I feel a candle coming on. Oh,
Oh, yes.
Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Not
This
too
is so
overwhelming.
thoughtful.
Of course.
Very,
of
very
course.
nice.
Yes.
Very, very nice. I love my gift.
Of course.
And I will send you a picture of me brewing this bad
First,
boy
hot coffee.
with my, what is it, cafe mocha
Okay.
cream.
Ooh.
So,
I see you. I see you.
Fancy.
Fancy. One thing that we noticed that definitely piqued our interest. I
Sure.
mean, we're young.
Yeah.
We saw that you started a youth basketball league for
Yes.
Latinos, Liga Del Barrio.
La Liga Del Barrio 76ers League, yes.
Yeah.
So yes, this was I was a part of this inception of seeing this organization unfold, literally right before my eyes. And
Now, did you fund it, create it,
So it was part of,
or just back it out when you found out that somebody else was creating it? What's the story?
So the story is this idea was born by both former council member at large Angel Ortiz, which, by the way, he's the first Latino city council member in the city of Philadelphia. And which
Wepa.
I'm not sure if anybody know that. Boricua, no, did you know that? Did you know that he was the first Latino council member at large?
Oh, yes, I did.
yeah.
Yeah, and you got your start with him, right?
Yeah. So back then, the owner of 76ers, Pat Croce, he was the owner of 76ers,
Yes.
and both him and Angel had a conversation. Says, I think that we really need to do something for these kids. We need to make sure that there's a place that they feel they can go to, and that they're safe, and they're not in the street, and they're not roaming around and getting into trouble. Like, what is it that we can do? So
Sports.
Sports. Hey,
Yeah.
basketball, something that they
it
love.
works.
And what better way to do that in creating an organization called 76ers Liga Del Barrio in full. So it was a collaboration with the 76ers at the time.
Yeah.
So basically having to be a part of that in his office and seeing just the inception of that and having to help, and being a part of whatever they needed to be able to create such an organization that was so important to our community. That organization, I mean, it's very dear to me. It's one of my very proudest, I would say, proudest moments of my life and my career, having to see this organization unfold. This organization, I would say that is a little over 20,000 kids went through this program over the years. I would say even more than that.
Wow.
I would say even more. Actually, there's a mini documentary of it. So I was a part of that. There was all these people that came in. They actually interviewed Pat Froci, which was very awesome interview by all means. And I gotta say, having to kind of be a part of that inception and that sort of core group that had these very first conversations of, what can we do for our kids in our community, and that was one of them. And right now it is led by Raymond and Esther Alvarez, and they have literally been all around the city in different schools and doing this for over 25 years. I would say 20 years.
Open to
anyone,
any kid, any teenager in Philly.
Yes,
can join the basketball
They
league.
even welcome, obviously through a process in which they also have they welcome having volunteers to be able to help be coaches and stuff like that. But one of the things that I do love that they do is make sure that the student is doing everything that they need to do in school, because if not, they're not allowed to play.
Oh, I love that part.
Yes. Because they wanted to incorporate their education with some of their,
First foremost.
Yes. They wanted to incorporate those two things together, because they say, well, you have a passion for basketball, you love basketball. Well, guess what? You got to make sure you're doing great in school.
That part.
Let me tell you something. I think that, although there was a very small, very quick, documentary of La Liga del Barrio, what I can say is that if we were to be able to unpack all of the different stories, it is an amazing thing to see. There's kids, they're playing basketball in colleges that are I think there's even one that's even playing professional basketball overseas. Yeah. So,
we saw that.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
So
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's those stories like that make you feel so good that you were part of that. Just recently, they actually gave me an award, for my service with the kids. And I'm like, sometimes when you get these awards and these recognitions, you're like, wait, but my job's not done. You know what I mean? Like, not even that.
You're like, thanks, anyways.
So I don't deserve this. Like, I could do so much more. And then, so it's always
Is it something that you still go back to and visit?
Of course. I was just with them last weekend. And,
wonderful.
So, and I'll share a story.
That's so cute. Yeah.
Listen,
Yes,
how much time do you have? Listen.
So much. Yeah. As much time as you
We'll
want to give
edit
us.
it.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's up to you.
Yeah.
So,
This episode can be whatever long you want.
So, I was named, I would say back in 2008, I was named Game Changer Award or something like that.
Yeah.
The 76ers Game Changer Award. I was honored to have the 76ers Game
Changer.
There you go. And so
I'll do it for you. All right, we got a 76ers Game Changer Award, Luz Colón. All right.
So it was so cool, because although that I was so honored to have it, all of the kids did go to that same game, and they're in the balcony. And so I'm literally walking in center, the basketball court, getting the game. And then one of the kids says, "Look, Miss Esther, she has a La Liga shirt. She has La Liga shirt." But I did it intentionally. Because I wanted the kids to see I'm a part of you guys. Like, we're familia.
We're the same.
And one of the kid was just so thrilled, right? He was like,
I ain't just supporting it, so you know that I'm one of you.
I'm supporting you all the way around. And I wanted to show my love and support in a very good, how you say it, a proud moment for myself. I was very proud. My kids were proud.
In a
And,
very humble,
yeah.
like communal, family way.
And I was like, wow,
like, yes.
I am not coming out of the field. The basketball court in a suit. That's not happening. I'm having a t-shirt on and a blazer.
Perfect.
That's what's happening.
Yes.
So
I think that's how we met you. Jeans, t-shirt, blazer.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You know, so, but it was really, really nice. And when I went to go see the kids, they were like, there she goes. And I'm like, I'm right here. But no, but it's so cool to see. It just gives me so much joy to see these kids play and how passionate they are for the game. Really takes so much, like someone from community to do that work, because it is what I would call somewhat of a ministry. I mean, it's, you have to have, you know, the skill set, the passion, and the ability to, you know, wake up every morning, every Saturday morning, or, you know, whatever days that they play, and having to have a whole day of kids, because they run a youth basketball, but they actually adopted a much more older adult sort of, you know, basketball league, so they do that as well.
So they can continue the
so
effort.
they can continue. So our hope and our dream is to have a building of our own, which I'm you know, that's one of my prayers. Hopefully the kids can have a home of their own, and that's what we pray for.
Like a rec center?
Yes, we're praying for a rec center for them to play in. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Incredible.
but it's something I love. I'm also part of a board member of the Lighthouse. Well, former inactive at this point because I'm campaigning, but I got to mention that too, because I think that organization also is an organization that services our kids.
Called the Lighthouse?
The Lighthouse,
Okay.
yes. So we have three locations. One is in the schoolhouse. We also have the main building that's in Somerset, and the
Just over
field.
the bridge, okay.
Yes, so
Yeah.
it's literally so Howard and Somerset. So it's really, it's kind of literally in the heart of the community.
Yeah.
It's literally in the heart community. I remember I was in there. We were cleaning. The doors were shut for a little while, and we were in there. We're cleaning, and as soon as the door was open, and this will give you chills, okay?
I'm here
because
for it.
I was like, this is why I do what I do. And that kid ran to the door. He says, are you guys open? And I was like, no, papi, we're not. We will be. I promise you, we're going to be open soon. And I tell you that those kids gravitate to this organization when they saw those doors open. I was like, oh my God, like this is why I do what I do every day, because kids like that need open doors and safe places like that, just like La Liga Del Barrio, because that's what we need. We need safe places for them to go and enjoy and be around people that care, you know, for them. You know what I mean? So
We all need that.
I love it.
Yeah.
So
the kids need it the most
Yes, yeah.
because they're sponges.
Yes.
Their
So,
future.
yeah. No, it's work, and we're really proud of our executive director that is now there at the moment. His name is Edwin Desamore. He is doing such a fabulous job in those
What does the
organizations.
Lighthouse focus on?
They right now we have one of our the educational building which has pre-K. And, you know, we have it's what we call the schoolhouse. And one on Somerset, there's a huge basketball court there where they're open for basketball. And they also have a STEM program. And we're really happy about that. We're very proud of that. And what we want to
STEM, like engineering?
STEM is in having to learn with other computers.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, like science, tech,
science,
engineering,
stuff like
math.
that, yes.
Yeah.
So we're really happy about with the program, and it's been kicking off. And although I don't know what somewhat of the mission stuff, listen, I am not a very techie person.
Yeah.
Just let's say the least.
Oh, me either. That's why we have Troy.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee you this: these kids know their stuff, and it's just amazing to see how smart they are when they're engaging in something they're very passionate about.
Yeah.
So it's like very interesting, and they love it. And you see some of the kids really intrigued by those programs. So our goal, with my support, definitely having to kind of sit on the outside right now, you know, but having to see this unfold. My goal is to help them in whatever it is that they need in the future. But they did have some talk of having a few other educational programs within that building, because there's tons of space. And if you're ever interested, it has a beautiful history to it. It really does. So,
Oh, I would love it.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not probably on the older generation to be enjoying that myself, but I would love to see what is
Oh,
out there.
You
for
will be amazed.
Yeah.
Yes. So they do have a gym and they play basketball. So it's pretty huge. It's really a very nice size where the kids go and play a few rounds of ball. And
there's 3 buildings?
there's 3 buildings in total, but the one in Somerset is quite large to be able to house a whole basketball court with a pool.
Wow.
But it's not open. but that's the part of the historical the whole piece of it where
Concept,
a lot of people don't realize that there's. I'm like, wait a minute. When I said, wait a minute, you're talking about that there's a pool in the Somerset building? So obviously for me I was very fascinated about some of how long it's been there. It's 1800s building. It's just it wasn't created back in the 1800s, but nonetheless, the building does house a few rooms up in the first and second floor, where there's definitely tons of potential. We can do tons of things for the kids there.
Yeah.
Nice. So transitioning, and speaking of like Philly hidden gems, maybe we could talk about our Philly favorites.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We love that. Some of our Philly favorites. We got another segment just to wrap up our interview with Luz. What are some of your favorites in this city? Specifically, we asked what your favorite drink is, your favorite meal, and just a cherished experience that you have. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So my favorite drink, I do love. It's very good. It's the sangria. It's a sangria. So Cafe Liz is a very small Latino business.
Liz, like
Cafe
Elizabeth, L-I-Z.
Just Cafe Liz, like cafe. I mean, I don't know. It's not for short. It's
Yeah.
Elizabeth. It's by Castor. I don't know the exact address, so I apologize. And
That's okay.
okay, but nonetheless,
They have an amazing sangria.
They have an amazing. Their food, everything is great there. Everything is great. But my favorite drink there is their sangria.
Wonderful. Yeah. Your favorite meal?
My favorite meal. Do I have to say the restaurant? Do you want to know the restaurant?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Oh my goodness. So.
Or even like, what's a
Shameful
favorite
plug,
meal that you make? Maybe like favorite meal is open ended. Favorite drink is
Okay.
open ended. All these
Okay.
questions are open ended.
Gotcha.
Like but like if it's a meal and you make it at home, maybe like, oh, I went to the Italian market and
Right.
oh my gosh, I got this. Whatever.
Well, here's the thing. I do like dining.
Yes.
And that's the
So
whole
do
thing
I.
but that's one of the things that Philly has to offer. Where
I never
you
get
know,
sick of going out. There's
yes.
always something new. It's bad. My wallet hates me.
But that's the thing. A lot of, everything that we talk about, all of the needs and necessities and stuff like that. Let's look at what Philadelphia has to offer. They have such wonderful restaurants here.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so many to choose from. But what I can point out is I love, anywhere I do go, I love to eat a nice salmon. I love to eat a nice
Yes.
salmon. So I have enjoyed a few places that do serve a fish or of something of that sort. But
Favorite salmon.
yeah, I don't know. There's so many restaurants to choose from, but one of my favorite meals is to have fish and eat fish and seafood. So
Yeah.
yes.
And a cherished memory to wrap it up. I know you have so many. So many.
So many.
through the triumph and bittersweetness of seeing like the struggle and helping people, there's always beauty in the chaos, as I say, and like the positive outlook, and there's always a good moment to look forward to or to remember,
Yes.
and I know there's so many.
Gosh, yes.
Maybe there's one with your kids, like this couldn't have happened without Philly.
Yes.
But it's like funny and unique too.
Yes. While I was a kid, maybe?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I always stands out to me.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, and I'm only saying this because this one memory always comes up. I'm like, oh my God, I remember. It's embedded in my head. We were very poor, when we were growing up, and I remember I used to live on 7th and Cecil B. Moore, which is really not too far from where we are right now.
Yeah.
And right on Cecil B. Moore, there's like somewhat of like a slanted hill. Like if you go up further towards where Temple University is, like kind of bit about there. And I remember all my friends had bikes. My mom couldn't afford a bike, so I had like this scooter.
Amazing.
You know the scooter?
Me too.
That you
The
had
Razor scooters? Yep.
Well, my scooter, I don't know about your generation, but my generation had the bigger wheels.
Oh, okay. Let the small ones. Bet.
I even think, did it have like brake things? Listen, I don't
Didn't
even
even
remember.
have brakes.
Your feet were brakes.
And shoes were messed up, And all I remember is having to have a memory of me running around and playing with my friends and, being a part of this community and just growing up in it.
Yeah.
I think that again, this is why I feel like when I talk to people and they're like, when you're running for city councils, all these things, like why? I'm like, well, you got to understand this is stemming differently for me because this is a city where I grew up with. I can remember all these things that happened to me in my life, even as a child, having to grow up in my community. I went to Ferguson. I have friends there. It was so great. And, having to make sure I'm walking to the corner store. And back then, and I share this, I don't even know, this is like one of those shameful plugs, but.
Oh, please,
Plug away.
Back then, we had food stamps. So. And
like the physical ones. You ain't had no EBT card. I get it.
And I remember I didn't care. I'm like, Mama, I want to go to the corner store just to buy some stuff. And then she would go in her booklet,
Rip it out.
And then I was so happy with my food stamp so I could go to the corner store to buy whatever I wanted. Yeah. Like, those are my memories.
No, that's great. That's great.
You know what I mean? But, and again, it's just, this is my home. I care
You look
for
back
her,
and you
her.
laugh at that.
Yeah.
You're like, my mom says, I don't break my sweat for nobody.
Yeah.
I see these say.
Yeah.
Because my mom worked so hard and you work so hard.
Yeah.
And you have to laugh at those times when you struggle.
That's right. It is. And I think that we were poor, but we were very happy.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of what we need to understand because we had each other, we had our health.
Yeah.
And my mom really strived. And I remember.
Y la esperanza.
Sí,
because if
claro
you
que
don't
sí.
have that hope for life, you stay in the struggle.
Sí. Y otra cosa que yo puedo recordarme is one of the things that I will remember and one of the things that I will always carry with me in my days is the fact that, I told you we lived in a PHA home. Mm-hmm. So when we moved from one PHA home, we went to a larger place. Then I had my sisters that moved on to college, and then it was just me and my mom on the lease. And at the time, thankfully enough that I had an opportunity to work for Angel Ortiz, so I was employed, right? This is the age of 19 at this point. And so I remember that
must have been so pivotal for you, so young.
So young. So I walked in the doors at 17, mind you. Wow. So at that age, my mom walked around and she says, they're building these units, and yo no tengo el dinero para comprar la casa. Yo no tengo el dinero para comprarlo.
Por supuesto.
And she didn't have the money, and said, Mom, let's do this. Let's save every dime. Every check, I'm gonna give it to you so you can save it. So I said, I'm gonna get you that house you want. And so she goes, okay, vamos a hacer esto, pero yo creo que tú estás muy joven para comprar casa. She says, you're a little too young.
You're a little too young to be worrying about that.
I was like, Mom, you don't worry. I got you. So I just like one of those things, right? So literally,
she's a fire sign.
Yeah. So 8 p.m., Osación Puertorriqueño en Marcha. Me and my mom went in, and we went through the process. And just like the way that, perhaps my mom thought at the moment, me being so young, they thought the same thing. Yeah. And needless to say, I will never forget this one advocate. She really fought for me. She fought for me to the end. I could say after much thought and much consideration, they finally gave me the loan to be able to buy this house. So check this out. So after finally we end up, moving in, and we knew that PHA, the housing folks didn't want us there anymore in the house. The day that we got our keys is the day they gave us the eviction notice. And then the turnaround to this and the full circle to this is having to share that story of that struggle and that almost, oh my God, we're almost out in the street. And like, luckily for me, at this organization that gave me that chance, that gave me that opportunity, I became a board member to APM.
Wow.
Full circle.
Yes, full circle. And having to be,
Wow.
and having
That's
to
awesome.
been able to see other people, live in homes. I mean, my last job with APM was to see the senior housing units that we build in Burke Street, see in a full capacity, and it's full, done sort of, how do you say it? Like it's in completion. It's completion. You know what I mean? And that there was very, very, very monumental for me. I would never forget that. Yeah.
I think that was the story.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I mean, the other ones were very important too, and that one.
Yeah.
That one, wow.
Yeah.
I think
I will add to that, but I don't want to make you cry. I'm telling you right now. If you
No,
want to
I
hear it,
mean-
I'll give it to you.
that one almost made me cry.
Oh,
That-
yeah.
that
But
going
yeah.
full circle for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Philly in and of itself is a full circle moment for me, because I used to just come here for
Yeah.
fun, and now I live independently.
Yeah.
And being independent in my life is very important to me, because I've never had to struggle. I guess I've chosen to. My family has always been middle class, and they've always helped me, but I've always struggled with mental health. So to be an advocate for myself has been very hard, but I always want to.
Yeah.
So but I always triumph, and I'm always very strong. Poderosa y fabulosa, como tiene que ser.
Yeah, claro
You
que
know, you always have to be like your own best advocate, because
right.
nobody else is gonna get you up in the morning.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And so, like, it's always hearing those kind of stories that keep me going and
That's right.
motivated.
That's right.
But if you want to make me cry, you can still make me cry.
Right.
I'm already
Well,
crying.
first of all, that makes me feel so good, because I think if there's anything that I ever want to be, is someone that definitely has struggled with mental health myself, anxiety, depression, all these things in my life, I can go on with all kinds of stuff that's ever happened to me in my life, and I've been able to persevere. And is there one thing that I want to lead in as an example, is to say, you know what, I can do it. I was a victim of abuse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was divorced. I was by myself. I was left struggling by myself.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to have your lights shut off.
Yeah.
Your home almost taken away. All these things, and to say, you know what, after everything back to back, I persevered. I literally conquered those walls, and whether wrong, right, or indifferent, or however I did it,
And it feels so much better to cross it off.
Right. But one piece that I did leave out of that story is the fact that as we were unpacking, don't cry. My mom opened a little piece of art piece that I drew, and it was the same house that I bought her. As a kid, I drew it. And it's the same house.
And it looked like
the house I bought her.
Oh. You can't hit me with that. That's so cute.
Yes.
Who needs up? It's fantastic.
Yes. And we looked at each other, and we were like, wait a minute. Does this look like what? It's like the same red door? Like what?
Wow.
Like this is not happening. It was literally, but those are moments that are very cherished to me, and it plays a huge part in who I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So,
It's rejuvenating.
yeah.
It makes it all worth it. Thank you so much, Luz, for coming on
Thank
our show. This episode will be out on Friday. It is Friday, and the election it's Wednesday, but you're watching this on Friday, and the election is on Tuesday,
Yes.
May 16th.
16th, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, and obviously, thank you to Troy for
you
always
want me to go
being
in?
here. You
Okay.
can, yes.
Let me take off these headphones.
Oh, yeah.
All right, come in,
Oh,
Troy.
yeah.
Let's get in here.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, guys.
Troy.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.